July 19th. We're just a little after 7 o'clock, and we've got Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya over here leading us in the Kirtan with his own very unique assisted electronic keyboard. And Mark's got the video going, and we'll do a little more Kirtan here for another 5-10 minutes, right?
Okay,
and then we'll have the lecture.
Try this way.
I hope that's recording.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Take it away. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare
Sar.
One more?
Yeah.
Okay, by popular demand.
Encore.
I don't know.
You know that much. You have 100 songs. What are you talking about?
Okay. We will try.
Crank it, Sar.
Okay.
Let's try this.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Okay. Thank you all very much for being here on time. Okay. You know, I don't know if your camera can pull off the screen, but I'll maybe do the screen. It's too bright.
It's too bright. Yeah, that's too bad.
You're welcome. Here's one
Because
more.
I'm going to be speaking a lot on the screen. All right.
Oh, no.
So, as a matter of proper etiquette and formalities, I'll read the Sanskrit prayers in respect to our spiritual master, which is on the screen here, which we sometimes sing, but we would lean into the Hare Krishna mantra, so I'll just read them. The English is there. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Please repeat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimanti Bhaktivedanta Swamini Iti Namane. For my respectful obeisances under His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is very dear to Lord Krishna, having taken shelter at His Lord's feet. Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravani Pacharane Nivarshesha Sanyavati Pashkata Deshtarane. Our respectful obeisances unto you, O spiritual master, servant of Saraswati Goswami. You are kindly preaching the message of Lord Chaitanya and delivering the Western countries which are filled with impersonalism and voidism. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. This is a salutation to Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Lord Nityananda is his brother, Advaita Acharya, Gadadhar, and then Srivas. So these are the 5 different aspects of Lord Chaitanya's mission. They're elaborated below. I'm not going to go into that right now. Then, of course, the Hare Krishna mantra, which we just sang. Okay, so for tonight, we have a really interesting topic that we all sometimes take for granted, I think. Does anybody know what the topic is?
How do we know what we know?
Yeah, how do we know what we know? Or how do we know anything? Really think about it. Does anybody want to throw a few quickie answers out? How do you know? Answer it any way you want.
Intuition.
Okay.
Learning.
Learning. Very good.
Learning.
Empirical knowledge.
Experience, empirical knowledge,
Realization.
realization. Okay. So in the quest for our understanding, the sages actually were very rigorous about this question. And I think we can all pretty much easily accept that in the process of knowing, for example, if you want to become a dentist, you would generally go to a school of dentistry and you would learn everything that's been accumulated up to that point in the school of dentistry, and eventually, if you persist, you will eventually get your license, and then you will be granted the permission and the legal status to be able to actually do dentistry as a career and charge people money and so forth. Or you're into Rolfing, for example, you learned it from somebody. Each one of us here have some skills and some disciplines, hopefully that we've learned from some reputable source. Well, that's pretty easy in terms of mundane, what we call mundane knowledge. But where it gets a little more tricky is when we talk about things which are a little more controversial, such as transcendent knowledge or transcendental knowledge. In terms of the nature of the soul, nature of the spirit, what we're doing here, why are we here, is there a reason, is there not a reason? In our morning programs, we've been talking more and more about how, we were discussing this morning about how absolutely fantastic it is. Sarva was saying, if the sun was moving just a couple of inches in one direction or the other direction, our solar system would either be too hot, we'd burn up this planet, or we'd be too cold and we'd freeze. And so how is it possible that all of these things are so very, and also, I'll take it one step further, the tilt of the earth is the same thing. I think it's 27.5 degrees or something like that. And if it was more than that, it would screw everything up in one direction. And if it was less than that, it would screw it up in another direction. So, so you can look at this from 2 different points of view. The scientists all, of course, will say things like, if you got an unlimited time, it's like enough things happen, you get enough chances, eventually all the conditions will be right, and then life arises. Okay, that's an answer. And then the other answer is that there's actually an intelligence behind all of this that made everything set it up the way it is, specifically for our form of life to appear on this planet. The Vedas actually give us information that there's knowledge, and there's life on all the different planets and all over. Anybody who works in a garden knows there's all sorts of life. You start watering the ground, immediately all these seeds start coming up. They even did a study. The scientists now have these machines that can go down underneath the ocean, way, way down at the bottom of the ocean. And they were speculating on how could there possibly be any life at the bottom of the ocean under the North Pole, where it's absolutely freezing cold, 20,000 feet under the ocean. They said it could not pop. So they sent one of these submarines down there with one of these cameras, and sure enough, there's some very strange fish swimming around down there in that environment.
With the pressure.
With the pressure too, yeah. So the Vedas are saying there's life everywhere. We may not have the ability, the vision, the eyes, the understanding, the intelligence to particularly perceive it. Prabhupada says there's even life on the sun. Of course, obviously their bodies are not made of the same material our bodies are. He says, no, of course not. Their bodies are made out of fire. When our brain goes, whoa, wait a minute, that doesn't compute. Well, that's because our brains are very limited and we think that everything's got to be the way we perceive it here in this universe at this time. So these are the kinds of knowledge that really has been a source of great interest for the human species for many, many years. I brought a verse up tonight, but I'm going to move into something else. We're going to kind of clip through this real quickly. This particular verse, without going into the big long story of Ajamil, is where Ajamil, who leaves his body, and he had a very colorful life and was a Brahmin and did some things he shouldn't have been doing, and so he had a sort of an unfortunate destiny. Hey, Miguel, we're just getting started. Come on in. So what happened was Ajamil had the good fortune that his son was named Narayan, which is named for God. And our scriptures say that if you remember God, or even if you don't remember, you just simply chant God's name at the end of your life, then you will automatically have a benediction of a higher birth. So come on in. Don't be ashamed. Don't be afraid. We don't beg. Glad to see all of you here. And so Ajamil chanted out the name Narayan, and at that moment, what happened was, even though the Avaduts were coming, those are the servants of the Lord of Death, Yamaraj, not very pleasant people. Maybe some of you have seen the movie that my friend Nadi did, where they went through this a couple times. And the Avaduts come, and they're horribly disfigured people, and they're coming to take the soul to, okay, we're going to give you another life, but before we do, you got some things you got to deal with here because you did some nasty things in this life. And so they're ready to pull the soul out of the body, but because he chanted Narayan, the Vishnu Dutas showed up and said, no, time out, stop, not your property. And so there was a discussion that went on at that point, and the Avaduts were saying, the Yamadutas were saying, wait, and they were going to Yamaraj, because they were under the impression that Yamaraj was sort of the man in charge. And they went to him and they said, what's going on here? I thought you were the boss. And he said, well, actually, nah, Krishna is my boss. He says, yeah, I'm the boss of the underworld, but I got to answer to somebody too. And they said, but we thought we had full domination here. And he said, yeah, actually, no, you're wrong on that too. And so what he said, and this is a real important thing here, and I want everybody to think about this, because everybody's, OJAI is filled, it's rich with all these different religious ideas and pseudo-religious ideas and philosophical ideas and speculative ideas and New Age ideas. So the question is, which one of these ideas are really valid and which one of them are just, people shoot from the seat of their pants? Which one of them are just pure sentiment and which one of them actually have some significant philosophical value? So how do we know that? And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. How can we actually know what the difference is between somebody who just says, oh, I know I'm going to heaven because Jesus loved me. Well, okay, I hope you're right. That's a nice sentiment, but is there something to support that? Is there a philosophical treatise to support that? So at that moment, what happened was so when Yamaraj was there, the Yamadutas were there, and the Vishnu Dutas were there, Lord Yamaraj turns to the Vishnu Dutas because they go to him saying, hey, what's going on? Explain this to us. And this is what he says to them. So we'll do the Sanskrit real quick, and just so that everybody knows what we're saying, we're going to do the English first. And this is the English. Please follow after me. Real religious principles are enacted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Real religious principles are enacted by the Supreme Personality of God.
Although fully situated in the mode of goodness, even the great rishis who occupy the topmost planets cannot ascertain real religious principles.
Even the great rishis who occupy the topmost planets cannot ascertain the real religious principles.
Nor can the demigods or the leaders of the Siddhaloka.
Nor can the demigods or the leaders of the Siddhaloka.
To say nothing of the asuras, ordinary human beings,
the
the Vidyadharas and the Charanas,
Vidyadharas and Charanas.
Okay, so this is what Yamaraj is explaining to his servants. He's saying, you know, because they're saying, hey, what's going on? He's saying, no, I can't make it up. God ultimately is the person who establishes real religious principles, not some yogi who sits there and meditates for 10,000 years and decides he's going to have a whole new system of yoga.
Who is Yamaraj?
Yamaraj is the Lord of Death. He's working directly. We're going to go into that a little bit more. You okay?
What?
You have a question?
Yeah.
What's the question?
The Vishnu something.
Vishnu Dutas are the ones who work for Lord Vishnu, who is another name for Krishna on the job.
So there's the bottom and the top.
Yes.
Okay.
Basically, heaven and hell. I mean, I really try to avoid using Christian imagery because it tends to get people all sidetracked with all sorts of trauma. But yeah, you can think of that. So let's do this real quickly. For the sake of time, I'm not going to do that. Let's just do this here. Or maybe we should. Hold on. Let's do this real quickly. Let's do the Sanskrit so we understand each of the words that make this up. Dharmam. Real religious principles or bona fide laws of religion.
Real religious principles or bona fide laws of religion.
To. But. Shakshat. Directly. Bhagavad. By the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
By the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Pranitam. Enacted. Not.
Not.
Vai.
Vai.
Indeed. Vidu. They know.
know.
Rasya.
Rasya.
The great.
Great.
Oh, excuse me. It's the great rishis such as Bhrigu.
The great rishis such as Bhrigu.
Na.
Not.
Api.
Api.
Also. Deva. The demigods.
The demigods.
Na.
Na.
Nor. Siddha Mukhya.
Siddha.
The chief leaders of Siddhaloka.
The chief leaders of Siddhaloka.
Asura.
Asura.
The demons.
The demons.
Manusya.
Manusya.
The inhabitants of Bhurloka.
The inhabitants of Virloka.
The human beings.
The human beings.
Kuta.
Kuta.
Where. Nu. Indeed. Vidyadhara.
Vidyadhara.
The lesser demigods known as the Vidyadharas.
The lesser demigods known as the Vidyadharas.
Charana.
Charana.
The residents of the planets where people are by nature great musicians and singers.
Karana.
Musicians and singers.
Adya.
Adya.
And so on.
And so on.
So we're getting a sense here, there's a lot of stuff going on in the universe that we're maybe not exposed to. Or we certainly aren't going to learn about it on the Sunday night news, okay? This information is coming from a whole different realm. So let's go up real quickly and see what this might sound like if we were to say it the way Krishna said it. I'll go through it and then we'll give everybody a chance. Dharmam. Tu. Sakshat. Bhagavat. Pranitam. Dharma tu Sakshat Bhagavat Pranitam. Dharma tu Sakshat Bhagavat Pranitam. Na. Vai. Vidur. Rasyo. Napi. Deva. Na vai Vidur Rasyo Napi Deva. Na. Siddha. Mukhya. Asura. Manusya. Na Siddha Mukhya Asurya Manusya. Kuto. Nu. Vidyadhara. Charanadaya. Kuto nu Vidyarya Charanadaya. Okay, all together. I'll do it, then you guys do it. Dharma tu Shakshat Bhagavat Pranitam. Na vai Vidur Rasyo Napi Deva. Na Siddha Mukhya Asurya Manusya. Kuto na Vidyadhara Charanadaya. Dharma tu shakshat bhagavat pranitam.
Dharma tu saksat bhagavat pranitam.
Na vai vidur rasyo napi deva.
Navai vidur rasya deva.
Na siddha mukya asurya manasa.
Nasida mukya asura
Kuto na vidya darachara nandaya.
kuto navidya chayandaya.
Who would like to try it? You have any brave souls tonight? By the way, in case you haven't already figured out, we're not doing Bhagavad Gita. This is actually the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, something's ringing. Is
Somebody's cell phone.
that your computer?
I could do the first one.
You want to
The
do
first line.
just the first line? Okay, try it.
Well, it's too much. Dharman tu saksat bhagavat pranitam.
Dharma tu shakshat bhagavat pranitam.
Navai vidur rasya napi deva.
Navai vidurasya napi deva.
Nasida mukya asura mansuya.
Nasida mukya asurya manasya.
Kuto nu vijada kanadaya.
Kuto nu vidya darachara nandaya. Very good, Lori.
That was really good.
Lori's she doesn't come all the time. We keep asking her to, but you did that real well. That's good, thank you. Okay, let's move forward here. We're not going to put anybody else on the spot. So, again, the verse here is, real religious principles are enacted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although fully situated in the mode of goodness, even the great rishis who occupy the topmost planets cannot ascertain real religious principles, nor can the demigods or the leaders of the Siddhaloka, to say nothing of the asuras, ordinary human beings, vidyadharas, and charanas. So, the purport, Prabhupada, this is not a real long purport. We're going to go through it quickly.
Excuse me, who's the rishis?
Rishis are like great sages. You usually hear of them like they're in the Himalayas and stuff, and they'll sit there and they'll meditate. They're the ones who do all tremendous austerities, and they theoretically are supposed to also be reading the Vedas and studying the Vedas and speaking on the Vedas, but it really kind of depends on what disciplic succession they're following in their particular branch or lineage, whether how much they do that, or what part of the Vedas. We're going to get into that a little later tonight, what part of the Vedas they're reading, okay? So, I'm going to read this for the sake of time, because I really want to get on to something I think you're going to find kind of exciting. But I do want to honor the purport here. There's some interesting stuff in it. When challenged by the Vishnudutas to describe the principles of religion, the Yamadutas said, Veda prahitato dharma. The religious principles are the principles enacted in the Vedic literature. They did not know, however, that the Vedic literatures contain ritualistic ceremonies that are not transcendental, but are meant to keep peace and order among materialistic persons in the material world. Real religious principles are nishtraigunya, above the three modes of material nature, or transcendental. The Yamadutas did not know these transcendental religious principles, and therefore, when prevented from arresting Ajamil, they were surprised. Materialistic persons who attach all their faith to the Vedic rituals are described in Bhagavad Gita 2:42, wherein Krishna says, Vedavata rata parta nadya asitya vadina. The supposed followers of the Vedas say that there is nothing beyond the Vedic ceremonies. Indeed, there is a group of men in India who are very fond of the Vedic rituals, not understanding the meaning of these rituals, which are intended to elevate one gradually to the transcendental platform of knowing Krishna. Vedaischa saveraham eva vedya. That's a Bhagavad Gita verse. Those who do not know this principle, but who simply attach their faith to the Vedic rituals, are called Vedavata Rata. So I want to clarify something here. What Prabhupada's talking about is the Vedas have all sorts of stuff in there. And this one of the 10 offenses is considered the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra to be one a karmakanda section. When you hear that, what they're talking about is people who rigorously follow these many principles. Usually they select a few that they particularly like, and they're very rigorous about following them. But they're not actually getting the deeper purport of what's being expressed, which is Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And actually in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna actually says, throw out all that religious stuff. Just surrender to me. Throw out all these religious principles, even the Vedic ones. Throw them all out. Just surrender unto me. Okay? Doesn't mean that we don't have principles, but they're different. They're a little bit more personable than simply the mechanical process of trying to separate yourself from the day-to-day dealings of the material world. So the next paragraph is, herein it is stated that the real religious principles is that which is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That principle is stated in Bhagavad Gita. Sarva dharmam prijigya mamekam saranam braja. One should give up all other duties and surrender unto the lotus feet of Krishna. That is the real religious principle everyone should follow. Even though one follows Vedic scriptures, one may not know this transcendental principle, for it is not known to everyone, to say nothing of human beings. Even the demigods or the upper planetary systems are unaware of it. This transcendental religious principle must be understood from the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly, or from his special representative as stated in the next verse. So I'm just going to read the next verse because it's going to lead right into the next thing that I want to do. So now he's going to give us who are those people who are actually recognized in the Vedas as being able to give us these religious principles. Is it just a matter of popular vote? Is it a matter of if the Pope endorses you? Is it a matter of somebody who memorizes the Bible or some other religious text? We're going to find out who
Succession.
that it's part of the succession. That's parampara, but where does it succeeding from? So if you go back. Usually, if you see very small pictures here on our altar in front of the books there, those are five generations back, from Prabhupada to Bhaktisiddhanta to Gorkashwar Das Babaji to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and then eventually to Jagannath Das Babaji. But that's only five. If you look in the front of our Bhagavad Gita, you'll see it goes all the way back to Lord Brahma teaching Narada. And who did Lord Brahma learn it from? Lord Krishna. It goes all the way back. So, let's see what Yamaraj says next. He's saying, okay, you need to learn this from the Supreme Personality of God. Well, who are the people who are representing what God has to say? And here they're listed. There's 12 of them. And you don't have to memorize them, but just keep these in mind because I'm going to show you another thing in a minute and it'll all come together for you. So, who are these people? Lord Brahma, Bhagavat Narada, we sometimes refer to him as Narada Muni. Lord Shiva is a representative. The four Kumaras, which came out as four young male men, and Brahma said, go create, and he said, forget it. We're not getting entangled in the material world. They knew right away they're not going to do it. So they had their own lineage right away. Lord Kapila, the son of Devahuti. Swayambhuva Manu, the father of mankind. Prahlad Maharaj was the son of Hiranyakashipu. We've talked about him many, many times. Hiranyakashipu is the one who got his guts ripped out by the half man, half lion Nishingadev. Okay, and Prahlad is standing there praying. So Prahlad is one of those authorities. Janaka Maharaj, I think he was the father of Sita. Grandfather Bhishma, who is the hero of the Mahabharata, was the one who took a vow that he would not have any relations with the opposite sex. It was a very, very strong vow. And he's the one, because of that vow and because of his heroic deeds, he was granted the right to decide when he would die. He couldn't be killed. He would choose to leave his body when he wanted to. And so we see in the Mahabharata, and there's a famous picture of many people illustrate, his body is riddled with arrows. They say he laid down and because he fell over, the arrows were piercing his body so many places he didn't even touch the ground. The arrows were holding him up off the ground. And yet he still didn't leave his body because he had been given that benefit. Probably didn't feel too good, but he didn't leave his body. Okay? Bali Maharaj is another acharya that's written in the Bhagavatam. Sukadev Goswami is the author of these scriptures, or excuse me, he's one of the people that's talked about quite a bit in one of these scriptures. And I myself, meaning Veda Vyas, the person who's actually writing this scripture, know the real religious principle. My dear servants, this transcendental religious principle, which is known as Bhagavat Dharma, or surrender unto the Supreme Lord and love for Him, is uncontaminated by the material modes of nature. It is very confidential and difficult for ordinary human beings to understand. But if by chance one fortunately understands it, he is immediately liberated, and thus he returns home back to Godhead. So, before I go any further, is anybody confused? Do we need to answer any questions at this point? Is everybody clear on what's happening in terms of these 12 personalities, why they're... Robert, you have a question?
Well, I mean, you could question, really, someone could say, like, well, what about the archangels and, the guardian angels and
You mean in
And-
biblical tradition?
yes,
Yeah.
or something, we could say, what about those guys?
Well, in some places, Prabhupada refers to Lord Jesus Christ had his own paramparar. But in other places, he says, yeah, that's there, and certainly his teachings are there. Remember, Krishna comes, Yada Yada Dharma Siklanar Bhavati. He comes to instruct religious principles at different times in different places. But he has to make it presentable for the people of that particular place in the world. So I like to point out that, Jesus gave his teachings, but even the simple teachings, the 10 Commandments, don't steal, don't, covet your neighbor, and this sort of thing, don't lie, right? Even that was a little bit too much for the people at that time. And whoops. You know what Mark's doing.
Just checking the feed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even that was a little bit too much, and they considered him a heretic, and they hung him up. But we encourage, and let it be on the record for all the people who keep on saying that I have this habit of saying it's my way or the highway. Actually, that's not our philosophy at all. We encourage people, if you're interested and you want to pursue the Christian tradition, pursue it, but pursue it with earnest and genuinely. Same thing with Islam, same thing with Judaism. Even if you're from the Aborigines in South, in Australia, if they have a tradition, pursue it. And if you pursue these other faiths rigorously, either you'll be satisfied and you'll become God conscious, or if you're not satisfied, which I know for myself and I think many people in this room started feeling uncomfortable with some of the unanswerable questions in Christianity, we started looking for something a little bit more thorough. And that's also fine. Then you would graduate to the next stage. You don't necessarily have to. If your heart is purified, then fine.
Right, so representative of all these other groups, say I know of, that maybe are here in this town, or New Age groups, this or that channel, or this or that kind of person. Like, to me, I do recognize this is much higher and way beyond all of that, even Christianity or any of these modern day religions. So I would say yes, like this is far beyond all of that,
Right, because you've gone deeper into your own questioning process, and at least speaking for myself, and you and I know each other quite well, you came to a point where you realized that some of the questions you wanted answered just weren't satisfied with the answers you were getting. And
Also,
there's
this
all
one
sorts
goes
of
further
places
back
out
in
there.
time.
What's that?
This one goes further back in time.
Well, that's
The
not really
Krishna
necessarily the point.
Consciousness goes further back into time. That's why,
Yeah.
Okay, so
in one of the the first languages ever written,
yes.
Sanskrit.
Oh, I
Bypass
have,
question.
I have a quick question. You had said that that the teachings that are given to us are for the control of society, and that I need a little clarity on that.
Well, control may not be the right word. The point is, the world's a real mess right now. Everybody seems to recognize that. And there's all sorts of people that are out there proposing, we should do this, we should do that. We've got organizations, we've got all sorts of 401k nonprofit organizations saying, give us money, we'll solve the problem. And of course, all the churches are saying, we'll solve the problem, we'll solve the problem. But what we actually have is a mess. So the question is, who will actually be able to solve the problem? So this is where, in our tradition, we say, and we've talked about this quite a bit here, the 4 legs of Dharma, okay, truthfulness, austerity, cleanliness, and mercy, right? If those things are being violated, it doesn't matter what else the other stuff is. It doesn't matter. The laws of karma are such, if those 4 basic principles are violated, there are consequences. And you can have all the money in the world, and you have the best brains in the world, and you can be, doing all sorts of wonderful deeds, what would be considered wonderful deeds. It's not going to solve the problem. And I give this example many times in the teachings of the Easy Journey to Other Planets. Srila Prabhupada makes the point right after that was written, like in 1953, and I think the United Nations had just been formed. And he said, the United Nations will fail too. It hasn't stopped any wars. In fact, some people would say the United Nations is one of the most corrupt organizations on the face of the earth. It's a lot of politicians getting around saying, hey, look, I'm going to kill half my people because I want to control them, and don't you get involved. Okay, well, fine, I'm going to give my people cocaine. Don't you get involved. You know, I mean, I'm being facetious, but a lot of that's going on. You know, don't mess with me. You know, so yeah. So how can we get a structure? How can we get a philosophy that will actually be the benefit for the majority of the people? And that's what Krishna is saying. He's saying, look, here's the philosophy. Try it on. Okay? Try it on and see how it happens. But you've got to start integrating these 4 principles into whatever you do. If you don't, then forget it. Game's over.
Can you say the 4 principles again?
Truthfulness,
Uh-huh.
austerity,
Uh-huh.
cleanliness, and mercy. It's one of the 4 charts that I have.
That's really
It
good.
gives a good explanation. And each one has its consequences.
But was the purport saying that if you only look at the Gita as this,
Mm-hmm.
instead of looking at it as a transcendental mechanism, then you've missed the boat? Is that what they were trying to say?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm understanding you correctly, but basically what the point I think that's maybe you're getting at is that it's making a very fine distinction. It's saying, and Prabhupada says this too, he says, there's a lot of people in this, well, maybe not a lot, but there's a few people I know in town who are reading the Vedas and reading the Bhagavad Gita. But because they don't have the advantage of a person such as Srila Prabhupada who lived the Bhagavad Gita and who actually understood it from the point of view of bhakti, in which his way he was empowered to do, I mean, if you actually study the pastimes of Srila Prabhupada, anybody, any honest person would go, how could a man of this age have ever accomplished all that he did in 12 years? I mean, it's phenomenal. We have a little pamphlet over here. If anybody hasn't read this pastime, you should read this. And the answer is because he was directly inspired, because he was a devotee of Krishna. A real good example is, why is the Bhagavad Gita, our Bhagavad Gita is the best-selling Bhagavad Gita in the world? Now, part of it's due to the fact that all the devotees are selling it every day. You know, that's definitely a big part of it. But the other question is, why is our Bhagavad Gita changing more lives than anybody else in the world? The Bhagavad Gita has been around in English for about 200 years. I mean, Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau read it in the 1800s. Okay? And it impacted them, but it didn't change. It didn't start a revolution in religion. It didn't start a revolution or change of the heart. But Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita did. And you were here a little earlier. What I had on the screen here was the 50th anniversary of ISKCON, and they were showing clips of the devotees in Russia. And there was a huge tent with thousands of people in there ready to listen. And we got our 10 or 15 people here in OJAI. But other places where Bhagavad Gita is being taught right now, obviously in India, but in other places, especially in the Eastern Bloc, it's just exploding. You know, because, you know, for better or for worse, whatever the Leela is, you know, the Hare Krishna movement had its rough start in America. And slowly that's changing, and Americans tend to be very proud. You know, we're so smart, we're the biggest, we're the most important, you know, but that's changing also. You know. Okay, so what I wanted to do here, some of you might have seen this before. I'm going to go through this relatively quickly, so don't let it overwhelm you. This is what I call my illustrated map of the soul. And if you look at the top, if I can do this, hold on. Well, it's kind of blocked out by this thing here, but it says knowledge acquiring process and the conditioning of the soul. So we're going to start this down here because this actually talks about the very topic we're talking about tonight. We're going to start over here. How do we know? How do we know anything? So usually if you're just talking to a guy on the street, they'll say, and we deal with this every Wednesday night at Mr. Nassie's house, well, I know because I had that experience. I know, I personally experienced it. Okay, that's one way of knowing. So let's look at this. Sense perception. Let me make it a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I can't read it all.
Okay, I'm going to read it out. I don't want to get too bogged down. Is that a little better?
Yeah.
Let's keep the illustrations here. Let's go a little smaller. Okay, so you'll see there's, next to it, I tried to give the English along with the Sanskrit. Let's start at the very bottom. So I know because I saw it. I saw that car hit that other car. Or I saw the moon in the sky. But you can also, you know, see a rope and think it's a snake. Right. And you also, I say frequently, you could also be experiencing radon gas right now, which you would never perceive and it would kill you tomorrow.
Because you can't see it or
Or
smell it.
radioactivity. We have no way of perceiving it, but if it was happening right now, we'd all be dead. by tomorrow morning, or very sick, one of the two. Okay, so this gets into just how effective are our senses, okay? Indeterminate knowledge. Notice, I'm not going to get into all the Sanskrit here, but each one of these gives you the Sanskrit version of this. Okay, incomplete, faulty knowledge regarding a perceived event. Example, seeing bread and not knowing if it is sweet, cheesy, or spicy. You see a loaf of bread, you don't know until you actually stick it in your mouth, which is another sense perception. But just by vision alone, it's not going to do it for you. Determinate knowledge, one understands fully the nature, dharma of what one perceives. Okay, biting into a donut and discovering that it has a jelly filling. So now we know a little bit more. So this is sense perception. But what's the problem with our sense perception? How many feet are on this elephant? Okay, senses can be misleading because we can fall into an illusion. We can see things that are not really what they are. Of course, obviously, the mirage. Prabhupada was giving a lecture there. He said, only a foolish person tries to find water at a mirage. A person with knowledge knows that's just a mirage. Don't die going across the desert to try to catch it because you'll never catch it. Okay, unfortunately, that tends to be what a lot of people are doing in the material world today. They're chasing mirages and all sorts of things. Okay, so let's go up a little bit further
Our
here.
senses are imperfect.
Yeah, so that's the idea is illusion form. Okay, now we're going to get the imperfect. This is all part of sense perception, which is known as pratyaksha. Okay, so pratyaksha, senses are very limited. Ordinary sense perception are 6 types. Okay, vision, eyes, tactile touch, smell, nose, taste, tongue, auditory ears, and cognition and mind. Now, keep in mind the Bhagavad Gita refers to mind, intelligence, and false ego as part of the material creation. These are not mind, intelligence, false ego are actually 8 of the material elements. So it puts a little spin on it. Okay? So that extraordinary sense perception, 3 types. Okay? Sanya kalashana, perceived generally from a particular object. Example, recognizing baked products because you know what bread is. Okay? So you see something that kind of looks like bread. Maybe it is, but I don't know if anybody's been in some of these bakeries where they have like fake bread because they don't want to have to put a fresh bread in their thing. Or usually in restaurants, they have a meal, but it's all like plastic.
Right.
It looks like the meal, but it's not. It's plastic because they don't want to have to put a fresh, and it's not going to look very good after a couple of hours. So they put a plastic meal in the showcase so you can see what you're going to get. Okay, so that's just an interesting way our senses are fooled. And then example, okay, this is another, jnana lakshana, sense organ perceives qualities not attributed to it. So assuming bread is sweet because it has an apparent sugar glaze, right? We see a piece of bread and you see a little sugar glaze on it. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's sweet, right? It could be a sugar, it could be a glaze of something else. It might not even be healthy, or it might actually kill you if it's some kind of a glaze of one of my shop, what do you call it? Shellac, yeah. It'll have a glaze, but it's not going to taste like sugar, okay? Okay, so then we get down here. So then these are the yogi. These are the 8 mystic yogi principles that are explained. They're explained in the Vedas. So just briefly, what are they? Yogi. So these are what the yogis are aspiring for. They have some mystical powers. So what are these 8 powers? Become so small he can enter into the atom. Become so light he can walk on water. Obtain anything from anywhere he wishes. So it's explained that the yogis can immediately take their arm and stick it out in the universe and bring something back immediately and hand it to you. Now, admittedly, you don't see a whole lot of this in America. You don't see a whole lot of it in India because these are very subtle sciences. But we understand that there's some mystic yogis who have the ability to do these things. Some people would say Jesus Christ had the ability. If he's lighter than the lightest, then he's not going to crush. He's not going to fall through the water. Right? He can walk on the water. He had actually, a lot of devotees are pursuing these theories that, Jesus went to India and learned all these very
He said
interesting
he
things.
mastered the city.
Yeah, the cities. Okay, so becomes so heavy that nothing can move him. Right? A yogi can sit down, and no matter what they do, he can't be moved. Create or destroy whatever he wishes at will. Manipulate elements of natural laws. Control senses and never become frustrated. Assume any shape he wishes. So I got down here at the bottom. It says, caution, powerful cities are a distracting trap in the material world. So devotees go, so what? So what if you can do these kind of things? If you really think about it, it doesn't get you out of the material world. It doesn't really change your situation. You still have to deal with birth, death, disease, and old age. Okay? So, and notice the arrow up at the top here. sense perception. We have these senses, but the senses are imperfect. I have to wear glasses, otherwise I can't see so well. So I showed the glasses. And if you want to hear a person's heart, we use a stethoscope. If you want to see stuff that's going on a microscopic level, if you want to see there's germs in your water, you need a microscope. Or to see out in space, you need a telescope. Or if we want to understand whether there's radon in this room, they make a little radon box. You can get it down at Lowe's. Some people have them in their house. They're afraid of getting dye from the radon. Okay, so our senses need some help. So maybe our senses are so good. So that's the basic thing. The next way of knowing things is a little bit more sophisticated, and this is what we refer to as the scientific method, which everybody's all hopped up on science now. Oh, science! Scientists said. Oh, it must be true then. So we're going to look at science. So inference and hypothesis, anumana, reasoning is limited to what is knowable. Okay, sources of data for inference and hypothesis. Conclusion from others. First class intelligence. So this is a standard thing. I say it many, many times. Real knowledge is you go to somebody who knows, they tell you, and you know. You don't have to go find out for yourself. I've actually had people argue with me. No, I have to find out for myself. Okay, well, try doing some cocaine and see how well that works. Or try a little poison and see how well that works. Yeah, you'll find out it'll kill you. Okay, you'll know it, but there's probably a smarter way to figure that one out. Go to somebody, read a little bottle, and it has a little skeleton on the bottom, right? It says, don't drink this. Oh, the person who made this product probably knows. Probably be good advice, don't drink this product, okay? So, that's first-class intelligence. Not most people don't operate from first-class intelligence. I hate to say it. High intelligent people act, and that's why it's called first class. Most people tend to want to figure it out for themselves. No, I gotta go try it for myself. And there's all sorts of problems with that. One who relies on their own feeble senses, even though unreliable due to their 4 inherent defects, which is what we're going over here on the side. Third class intelligence is a person who makes a mistake and then thinks next time it'll be different and makes the same mistake again. I know I can speed down this highway and not get caught. Yeah. They give you a ticket, and next thing you know it, well, this time's different. I got to go fast. Yeah, that person doesn't learn too quickly, okay? So that's not such a good idea. So comparison, upamana, comparing what has been defined beforehand with what is encountered. If I know what to look for, I can recognize gold, God, when present. Okay, so the potential flaw. If taught incorrectly, you end up with pyrite or apritya. That's the Sanskrit word.
Fool's gold.
I found a piece of gold. Remember in the old days when they were hunting gold in California, right?
In California, yeah.
People who didn't know what real gold was thought they found it when they found pyrite. I'm assuming everybody has a little geology and they know what pyrite looks like.
Yeah. It looks like gold.
It really looks like gold. If you don't know, I mean, it looks more like gold than real gold does. You think about gold's usually just
shiny.
It's real shiny, but it's also what do they call it?
Density.
Seller.
Density.
Yeah, well, there's ways of knowing what gold is. There's 4 ways of knowing what gold is. You rub it, you bend it, you bite it. I think it is. I don't know. I can't remember what they all are.
Or you take it to the jewelry store where they put in that acid.
Yeah, there's 4 ways of knowing. Goldsmiths actually know what these 4 things are. So you have to know. So the same thing with knowing who God is. You have to know. Otherwise, some idiot will come up to Meditation Mountain. He'll say, I'm God, just listen to me. And everybody will give him his money. And he'll go, thank you very much. And go back to India. And everybody goes, oh, God was at Meditation Mountain last week. Oh, really? That's interesting. I saw him drive off in a car. I mean, it's like, it's insane. People don't know. God doesn't need to hang out at Meditation Mountain. He certainly doesn't need your credit card. Okay? So, let's keep going down here. So these are different ways of knowing, variations of inferences and hypotheses. Okay, inferences, I tried to give some examples. Inferring an unperceived event from a previous cause. So example, bread was just made nearby because I can smell it. Well, yeah, that may be safe, but, it could be in your back seat, but it could be, artificial scent too. It could be a chemical factory that makes, they make these aromas now, chemical factories. when you see on the products they say artificially flavored, it's because there's I think it's in New Jersey. It's a chemical plant, right? You know this, right? There's a chemical plant. You can ask them to make any fragrance, and they'll make boysenberry smell, banana smell, strawberry ice cream.
Caramel candy.
They break it down, and they can make any scent that your nose will recognize. And that's how they make these these gourmet jelly beans, right? That's what they're doing. They have chocolate gourmet jelly beans or whatever. It's not chocolate. It just smells like chocolate. Yeah. So you might smell bread, but it doesn't necessarily mean there's bread there. So that's not necessarily a safe way of understanding something. Same thing here, inferring an unperceived cause from a perceived effect. There is an oven nearby because I smell fresh bread. Well, maybe there is an oven nearby, but maybe it wasn't baked in an oven, or maybe it was baked and then immediately brought, right there. And it'll still, if we make bread and you bring it out and you open it up in the room, the oven may not be anywhere near that room, but you'll smell it. So that's not a safe conclusion either. Third example here is inference based on uniformity of coexistence. And you notice the Sanskrit words here. There must be a bakery nearby because I smell fresh bread. The smell of fresh bread routinely coexists with an operational bakery. So again, these are basic assumptions, but we can all see how these assumptions are not absolute assumptions. And by the way, this gets real tricky when you go into a courtroom, when you hear these people defending all sorts of people. Let me see. Your fingerprints are on the gun. The shell matches the casing of the gun. It was in your room, and you're telling us you didn't shoot it? Well, and then they come up with some very convoluted story, right? Because in the court of law, you can't necessarily make these assumptions. That's the whole battle of people that are in difficult law situations. Okay, so what do we have here? These are two of the problems that we have. We have the cheating propensity. People cheat. And the best
All humans, you mean?
Huh?
All humans?
Unless they're actually purely transcendental, they have a propensity to. I don't want to say everybody does. Mm-hmm. And if you don't think you're cheating, think about your taxes. Or if you're really honest, think about the time that you took the position of knowing something when maybe you don't really know it so well.
People are always cheating themselves and allowing themselves to have the best that they deserve.
There's all different ways of interpreting this element of cheating. I like to think of it as where I worked. When I worked at the Navy, there was a lot of people who came in with the assumption their resume said they knew some programming language or they knew some technical information. And then, when I start working with them a little bit, I start finding out, wait a minute, you don't really know what you're talking about. You may be on your resume, but you don't understand some of the... And most of us in our discipline, if you go to a mechanic and you say you're a mechanic, he's going to suss it out real fast whether you know what you're talking about, right? Any field that we all happen to have some expertise in, if you're a seamstress or if you're a baker or whatever you are, if you're a golfer, if somebody comes and starts talking to you, you're going to know whether they actually know what they're talking about or not. Because people tend to push their resume a little bit bigger than maybe it really is, right? Mm-hmm. So that's all part of the cheating. And the posturing, look at me, they want attention. So there's all different flavors of why people cheat. And then the fourth one here is we are mistaken prone. Excuse me, there's another one above it. We're mistaken prone. No, that's it. We're mistaken prone, okay? How many people can say they've never made a mistake? If you're mistaken prone, then whatever conclusions you're going to draw, you better think twice about how reliable that conclusion is. Okay, so let me just move along here. We don't want to drag on. So these system here, these things that I'm quoting here, are not recommended by the Vedic sages. All of this stuff down here, we've kind of gone through it and said, yeah, that stuff does. If you really want to know what the truth is, if you really want to know, that stuff isn't going to get you very far. If you want to be honest, usually people aren't honest enough and rigorous enough to kind of grasp this. I can't tell you how many times I've been at a lecture or talked to people, and they said, okay, sir, you have imperfect senses, you have propensity to cheat, you have the propensity to make mistakes, and you have the propensity to fall in delusion, and you're telling me I should accept your understanding? And tell me why your understanding is any better than his or hers or this other person. and it's amazing how convoluted they'll get, and they'll go around and around and around and around, and they'll say, so is that a good answer? And I'll go, it wasn't even an answer. It's like, like I say, frequently you'll hear a lot of stuff on the spiritual circuits which are hardly any different than what you hear on the political circuits. Right? They'll talk for 10 minutes and it sounds like they're answering you, but when you actually stop and think, you go, wait a minute, they didn't answer my question. Right? And I think most of us here, I've talked with a lot of you, a lot of us here have had the experience when we're growing up, when you go to church or something, Catholic, a lot of Catholics, and they ask the forbidden question, and the minister says, that's not a good question. Or somehow or another they avoid it, or they go, oh, you're thinking too much, or whatever it is. There's all different flavors of the way it is. And they go away going, I'm not satisfied. That didn't satisfy me. Okay, so up here, and I don't want to spend too much time here, but I want to show you. So the Vedas basically say the only thing that's reliable, back going to our, God's the only one who can actually explain what's going on here. So he does a pretty thorough job of it. So what we have here, reliable testimony. So if you want to know who your mother is, if you want to know who your father is, you go ask your mother. She's the authority. Hopefully she knows. I sometimes get myself in trouble because nowadays people go, well, my mom doesn't even know. But theoretically, if anybody knows who your father is, it's going to be your mother. Right? She's the authority. So in this case, if you want to know what's going on, you got to go to the source. So Krishna's given us these Vedic literatures. Just quickly here, Shruti, which is the core canonical literature, heard directly from the Supreme Lord. You have the Rig Veda, the Samaveda, the Yajur Veda, the Artha Veda, and these are all a little bit described here. I'll make it a little bigger so you can see and read them for yourself. And then you have what's referred to as the Upanishads. We have the Shri Upanishad. We have a video series that some of us have been watching here on one of the nights out of the week. Really wonderful stories, moral stories and tales that give us some insight into what's going on. Then you have Smriti, what's remembered. Histories are the Acharyas supported the Shruti. So we have the Puranas and the verses. So this is just to give you some idea of how exhaustive the Vedic literatures are. Now we study the Bhagavad Purana. Now notice all the ones in green are called the Puranas in the mode of goodness. And there's 6 of them. And the Bhagavad Purana is the one I have on my shelf, 18,000 verses. And we haven't even gotten to translating these other ones yet, but look at the size of them. There's a lot of information out there. Okay. And you get some description here of what this information is all about. Then they have the Puranas for the people in the mode of passion. Because Krishna is very kind. He wants everybody to have some access. So if you're in the mode of passion or ignorance, you're not ready for the mode of goodness. You're not going to be able to grasp it. It's like throwing a college dictionary at a kid that's in 3rd grade. He's going to go, what's this? It's just, there's no way he's going to be able to understand it. So Krishna's provided scriptures at all levels of society so they can be pushed forward. So we have the Puranas in the modes of passion, and then you can see how many things are. And then we have Puranas in the mode of ignorance, and then we have the Ihasas, which are frequently referred to historic events, explained here, and that's where we have the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, by the way, for people who are maybe not aware of it, is sort of a summary of the Vedic literatures. Because who's going to sit down? I mean, how many people have even read the Bhagavad Gita? Right? If you can't get through 700 verses, you're going to have a hard time getting through 18,000 verses. Okay, so the Bhagavad Gita is really
Condensed.
not asking too much. It
It's
really
like
isn't that
condensed,
hard to
right?
read. And if you read it, you will find, if you read our Bhagavad Gita, it will open you up in the areas you're just not even aware of are there. Okay? And so then we have the Ramayana and the Manusamhita and of course the Mahabharata, which, Lori, you want to show your Mahabharata? That's a copy of the Mahabharata. Lori has a copy of it. We fixed the book for her. Okay?
Highly recommended.
It's a wonderful story, and these are stories you won't be able to put the book down because they're coming from a divine source, and they're a little hard sometimes with the names, but if you hang in there, you'll get it. Okay, so that's on this side of the chart, and the rest of it's maybe not quite so elaborate. That's the more detailed side. So what do we have here? So we have all these different ways of knowing, and then we have here in the middle we have the soul. And the soul is situated in this very awkward sort of place. It's called the material world. And what we have is birth, death, disease, and old age. This is referred to as the samsara, or the wheel of birth, death, old age, and disease. Okay? And that's what we got going on the outside. But we also told, the Bhagavad Gita talks about how there's a Paramatma, a Supreme Atma, and there's also the Jivatma situated in the heart. And all this stuff that's going around here, there's a verse in the Gita, Indriyani Prani Adur Indriye Paramanam Mana. Working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is higher than the mind. And he, the soul, is highest of all. I'm quoting right here this. Mind, sense, okay? So then there's all these, and then there's actually, for those of us who studied or are aware of psychology, they talk about, very similar to what's in the Vedas, different stages of realization. Anamaya, identifying self based on food, right? For those who studied psychology, right?
Mhm.
Baby, what's he doing? Put everything in his mouth. Okay, he's at that stage. Then he gets a little bit more pranamaya, identifying his life force. He's going, ooh, hey, cool. Like what's his name? Mark's birthday card for me here. You know, it's like, hey, cool, I'm alive. This is cool. I'm going to be a Superman now. You know, okay. So that's the next stage, and then you get to the manamaya, where what happens? People go to college, right? And they go, oh, wow, I can think.
I'm so smart.
I'm going to study Plato now.
Yeah.
I'm a thinking person. Okay, and then identify at that level. And then Vidyamaya, which is a little bit more subtle, which is I'm intelligent. I'm not just thinking, but I'm thinking really intelligently. Okay? And then it gets to Anandamaya, which is I want the bliss. And that's where you start getting into the mystic processes. See, a devotee's not even really interested in bliss. I mean, it comes, but it's not his goal. And there's an interesting thing to think
Kind of
about.
like a benefit.
It's a benefit. Yeah, you get all the benefits, but it's not really his goal. And that, by the way, that's a very high stage. It's not something you should artificially try to do. And that's where the Satchidananda Vigraha comes in knowledge, Vigraha form. So anyhow, but the soul is situated in the middle of all this, and Krishna's right there with you. And if you go back to this other side of the chart, whoops, let me go over here. If you go back to this other side of the chart here, you'll see that each one of these processes, they don't quite make it into the soul. They don't quite get in there, and they stop at different stages. So this is where we're going to go over to this side of the chart. On this side over here, we have what we read earlier tonight, which is the 12 different Mahajans. Maha meaning great, Jan meaning personality. And we see them listed here. This came right out of that verse, okay? Bali Maharaj, Yamaraj, Janaka, Manu, Kapila, Narada, okay? Now, out of these 12 existing there's the 4 Kumaras I was telling you about, the 4 little kids. Okay? Only 4 of these systems still exist today. The other ones were lost for one reason or another. I'm not sure exactly what happened. But the only 4 that are actually available to us today are the one through Lord Shiva, which is the Rudra Sampradaya, the Kumaras, and then the Lakshmi Sampradaya, the Sri Sampradaya. Our Krishna conscious tradition, you'll hear the devotees refer to it as the Brahma. You'll see Lord Brahma here, who is the first creator in the universe, and he's one of the 12 Mahajans. Brahma, and then it goes down to Madhva. Madhva is right here. He taught the Dvaita, the monism, dualism. There are 2, Paramatma and Jivatma. There's always 2, not 1, in rebuttal to Sankaracharya. And then, so it's the Brahma, Madhva, I say here. Gaudiya, meaning Lord Chaitanya, Sampradaya. So that's our lineage. That's how we know we actually have a clear highway to legitimate knowledge.
I heard you mention Jagannath.
Yeah.
Is that there? I'm sorry.
Jagannath is just it's an
That's
expansion.
a lineage. You said in the lineage of back.
Yeah, but Jagannath is a deity of Krishna. That's there, but that's not what we're talking about right now.
It's not a lineage.
No, it's not a lineage. I said King Janaka.
Oh, is that?
I think that's what you heard me say. That is
Okay.
the lineage. So what we have here, and then there's a very important thing here that really is something we should all think about. When you're trying to understand what the truth is, and you go anywhere and somebody says, I'm going to tell you what the truth is, you should always think in these 3 systems. And I've got it written here. This is it right here. Sadhu Shastra Guru Vakya Chitte Kariya Aikya. that the three checks and balances. Think of it as the American governmental system. We have the judicial system, the legislation system, and the executive branch. Okay? Those three have to work together. Not one of them can dictate, at least in theory. That's the way the United States was set up. So the same thing is here. You need to have the guru, you need to have the scripture, and then you need to have the lineage of all of the great personalities who've repeatedly brought this information down. So we run into problems when you have somebody like David Koresh in Waco, Texas, saying, I'm Jesus. Yeah, according to who, David? And really, are you reading the Bible properly? And do all the other great Christian traditionists and the great ministers, do they all agree with you? No. You better go in the other direction. Okay? So, here we have, in our case, the guru is Lord Chaitanya, or in our case, Srila Prabhupada, who is a descendant from Lord Chaitanya. The Shastra, which is the Vedic literatures, which we already just went through, all the different Vedic literatures. And then we have the sadhus and the holy sages, where they have also written, chronicles on all these Vedic literatures, commentaries. And if you read Srila Prabhupada's books, he's frequently referring to Narottam Das Thakur added this particular perception to this particular verse to help us further understand it. So everything is lining up. It's nobody's coming out from left field making stuff up and saying, well, I think today Krishna decided he's going to resign and we're going to put somebody else in charge. Which is silly, but there's essentially people are saying stuff like that. Okay, so if you have this system right here, then instead of getting stuck, what happens with the combination, I tried to illustrate here as the yellow, pink, and green line, those three systems can actually penetrate and give information into the heart of the soul, which will then liberate it from this material mess, which is this whole cycle of birth, death, disease, and old age. And if one successfully takes up the process, then what will happen is he can actually, you'll see this yellow arrow here, it goes up, and it goes up here, and what I tried to show here is the 5 primary, it's not limited to this, but these are the 5 primary relationships you can have in the spiritual world. And God as a daddy is not one of them, which is kind of interesting, because that's the predominant one in Christianity. God's my daddy, gimme, daddy takes care of me.
Take care of me.
In the Christian conscious tradition, you have friendship, but it's a little more intimate, because when you have to take care of God, then all of a sudden there's a deeper bond. And not that you have to take care of, he doesn't need to be taken care of, but it's a more intimate relationship. So what are those 5 relationships? I'll just go through them real quickly here. You have Madhurya Rasa, conjugal. Juvenile love. Love God culminates in wanting to offer one's own body to the Lord. Mood of Srimati Radharani, and friends such as Lalita and her servant maids, manjaris like Rupa and Rati. Vatsalya Rasa, parental affection. Devotee considers himself the Lord's maintainer, like a parent or a child to a child. Mood of Nanda Maharaj and Yasoda Maharaj. Yasoda.
So that means God's the child?
Yeah, so Yasoda had the opportunity to raise Krishna as her child, and she did it in a very loving way, and Krishna played the part of a child, because she wanted that particular relationship. Sakya Rasa, friendship. This is the one I feel real affection towards. Fraternal relationship with God and a friendly affection develops. The pastimes of the Guru with the Krishna with the the cowherd boys. And they're out there playing with the cowherd boys, and they're playing games, and they're eating gulab jamuns, and having a good time. Okay? That's what that's all about. And then you have, these are different ones. Dasya Rasa, servitor. You serve God with awe and veneration. That's kind of maybe a little bit like the daddy role. Mode of intimate servants like Chichaka and so forth. They go to like the spiritual planets. And then Sattva Rasa is where the non-dualists go. If they actually practice it seriously, which generally they don't, at least not in Kali Yuga. But there actually is a place in the spiritual world. I tried to draw arrows here. If they actually are able to completely transcend all their senses and get past all of their desires and all the other stuff, then they can actually experience the spiritual world as the effulgence around the spiritual world. The problem with it is because they've transcended everything, they don't have any body, and that eventually gets boring, and then they usually fall away from it. Okay. So, but those 5 principal rasas are there. Now, if you don't And this is what it say. I got this verse here. We've talked about this many times. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he shall attain without fail. And that will determine whether you go bump up here to the spiritual world, or bump, you go back around on the wheel of samsara. Okay, try it again. And what happens then is you end up going down here to this lovely corner, where this is based on one's karma, they get awarded residence again in one of the 14 planetary systems, or the 28 hellish systems. It just occurred to me, wow, there's like twice as many hellish planets as there are the middle planetary system.
The bad hotel.
Yeah, the bad hotel. So here, it's a little hard to read. I'm not going to go through them all. But here you have the upper planetary systems, which is, I try to show here, illustrated as the demigods. You can read all about the demigods. It's the good hotel. It's Club Med, but it's material world. It's not
You
permanent.
still have to pay the bill.
You
and
still
you have
got
to
to,
leave.
well, you don't have to, we already paid the bill. It's
But you
prepaid,
leave. Yeah,
but you eventually get kicked
you
out.
leave. Even if it's in Paris.
Yeah. Here is the Earth planet. This is where we are. We're situated right in the middle. We can go up or down. In fact, it's said that the demigods are praying to be born into the earthly planets because we have the opportunity to actually understand Krishna, especially in Kali Yuga, and get immediately transported out of the whole material mess. The problem with the higher planets is it's so nice. You just go
Nobody
like,
wants to
hey, I can kind of deal with this for a while. I can just sort of settle into this.
Beverly Hills.
Right? So, but then you have what's referred to as the lower planetary systems, and you can see, there's not so many nice things.
Like one of those higher planetary systems would be the heaven of the Christians.
Yeah, that would be correct. Yeah, because they're still in the material world. Of course, theoretically, if you really are rigorous about pursuing Christianity, and you actually fully transcend the material mode, then you would get some Krishna sadhus. Everyone according, all of them as they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. So I personally feel that if you're pursuing Christianity with real vigor, and really, throwing yourself into it, or Islam, or any of the other traditions, then Krishna says, because he doesn't care about whether you call him Krishna or Allah or Jesus or Jehovah or whatever. Yahweh. He doesn't. He's not. We're hung up on all that stuff. He's not. What he's looking for is the change in heart.
There's a line right
If there's a change in heart, then you get the payoff. And even if you're, I don't want to mention any of these. Some of these Christian big shots are actually kind of disgraceful. They carry on when they're flying around in jets, and the big mega millionaire Christians that are.
Reverend Horn Dog.
Yeah, I mean they're
Yeah.
the question is how much is their heart really changed, or are they just in it for the take away all the perts, and are they still? It's the story of Job. Take away all the perts, and are they still going to be that committed? Because remember, in Krishna consciousness, send me to hell. I don't care. Just don't let me forget you. I mean, that's really the highest level. I'm your servant. It's on the flag here. Lord Chaitanya says, even if you handle me roughly by your embrace or make me brokenhearted, I'm still your servant, birth after birth after birth.
Wow.
I am not in it for me. It's about you. How can I serve you, Krishna? Okay, so I'm sorry we kind of went a little longer than I wanted to, but I thought it might be worth it. This kind of gives you the overview of real knowledge. And by the way, this is one of the posters that I printed for a couple bucks. If you want, you can take one with you. It's something to really think about. I put this together as just for the purpose we did tonight, so that people can really get a handle on all the knowledge that's out there. And it's all available. So we do have a few minutes for any questions or comments or inspiring thoughts. If anybody would like to share something or ask a question.
We were talking earlier about guardian angels and such, and the thought that it's nice to maybe have counsel by higher beings. Say, if you have questions and you're going through a difficult time in your life or something like that.
Absolutely.
So I was raised Catholic and such, and so I guess I grew up with that concept of guardian angel and such like. But I don't know. Is there a way to put that in there somewhere? Where would that be in all of this?
Well, guardian angels, when I was reading the Bhagavad Gita the first time, what really threw me was the whole concept of demigods. It was hard for me to wrap my brain around it. until I finally realized demigods are just guardian angels. They're the, you know, they're the, we call it the semi-angels doing God's work on his behalf. In Christianity, it's a little messy. It's not so clear, but in the Vedic tradition, the demigods, they're in charge of different things. Indra's in charge of the universe, you know. Surya's in charge of the sun. You know, Vayu's in charge of the air. And when it's time for wind, he's out there saying, okay, time to throw some wind in the United States. We'd like to have Indra come here and put a little rain in Southern California. And by the way, this is all, I'm being a little facetious, but this actually is very elaborately explained in the Bhagavad Gita, that if you please the demigods, they will in turn please you. But if you don't please the demigods, they're going, well, why should I do anything for you? I mean, it's just like us. If you want a favor from somebody, be nice to them.
I doubt Tantrias are pleasing them.
Yeah. I mean, it's astonishing to me how many times I've encountered people who they treat you like crap, or they say nasty things about you, or they do all sorts of horrible things, and they want you to do them a favor. I mean, you know, it's like if you're a magnanimous soul, yeah, but most people don't react that way. So anyhow, so what was it again? Yeah, so the demigods are there, and again, the Bhagavad Gita elaborates on that in chapter 9 and even chapter 7. Yanti deva vrata devan pitran yanti pratavrata. That one can worship the demigods, and you can go to the planets of the demigods, but even that's temporary.
It's in the material.
It's still in the material world. So if you really get it, Prabhupada used to say over and over again, if you really understand, this material world is filled with birth, death, disease, old age, suffering from our senses, suffering from other people, and suffering from natural disasters.
And separation from Krishna.
And separation. Well, I mean, how many people can say they're not in anxiety at least sometimes? And I think if you really start looking around, you'll find people are in anxiety a lot of the time. Okay, there's a lot of suffering out there. I've met people at some of these meetings that I go to, and I've actually had people say, oh, the world's a beautiful place, everything's beautiful, everybody's loved, right? It's a big philosophy nowadays. It's all love, it's all beautiful.
It's all good.
It all feels good. Well, that's not what Krishna says. Krishna says, Abrahma bhuvana loka punar janma na vidyate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest planet are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. So Prabhupada said, anybody who doesn't recognize this problem and work towards solving this problem is a madman. They're out of their mind. And that's what the whole religious, I don't like using the word religious, but that's what the religious process is really all about. And if it's not helping you solve that problem, then maybe you better be looking somewhere else.
What verse is that in Gita that says that?
Brahma, which one?
That if you worship the demigods, you go to the demigods.
Chapter
if you
9.
worship the ghosts, you go to the ghosts.
Chapter 9.
It's chapter 9.
Chapter 9, text 22nd through 28 or something.
So, Bill,
there's a whole series of verses.
I have a question. So, at the end of all this roadmap that you've given us, where is is there an ultimate destination, and what is it called, and who is there, and what is it?
To go back to God.
The ultimate well, the beautiful thing about the Christian conscious philosophy is that we all have our own individual personal relationship with Krishna. So yours may be different than mine. Like I said, those are the 5 principal rasas. Some of the ladies would just love to have Krishna as their child. I'm not particularly interested in that. But I always fall back on, I'm kind of a,
So you have to follow your
I'm sort of a maverick, what do you call it, my Krishna conscious style. And I say this very respectfully, but I tend to be that way, kind of knowing Krishna's my friend. If I'm screwing up, he kind of gives me a tap on the shoulder and says, hey, you're going a little, straighten it out. Oh, okay.
So it's a question of temperament.
Yeah, we all have a different mood. We all have a different relationship. Okay, some people are very, like we have pujaris in our movement, and they dress the deities in the temples, and that's their service. And I've never really, I dress the deities here every now and then, but I've never really, I've done pujari work, but I've never really thrown myself into doing deity worship at the temple. It's just not my nature. I build big Roth carts, and I go out and sweat in the sun and start driving nails and, deal with all the material nature. That's why some people say Prabhupada gave me the name mayesvara. It means the one who is the servant of the controller of the material energy. Because that's my nature. I'm not very good at music. I kind of fudge my way through it. But I don't consider myself a musician. But, you know, people like Gary's a professional musician. He picks up a guitar and he'll play whatever you tell him to play. He knows how to do it. It probably comes very natural for you, too. So, you know, that's our dharma. What comes naturally for us is usually our dharma. Or they say, if you want to know what your dharma is, what would you do if you had all the money in the world and you didn't have to do anything? What would you be doing? All your material.
Planting a garden.
Huh?
Planting a garden and
Okay.
teaching other people how to do it.
Yeah, so that's, you know, everybody has the answer to that question, and it's different for all of us. And that's the beauty of it, because we can't all have gardeners. We need some people doing music. We need some people building up the houses. We need people doing all these
But I
different
want to do something that tests it, puts to areas that I'm still learning things in.
That's
You know what I
okay.
mean? You know what I mean? I want to. I feel like while we're here, we're supposed to remain teachable and share what we have that comes to us naturally, but also share what we're learning on the way.
And that is exactly the definition of a Brahmin. A Brahmin is never satisfied with his learning. He always wants to learn, oh, I can learn gardening? Oh, I can. I mean, I was never really musically inclined, but I realized as I started doing this program, I better start learning how to do it. Okay? And so I've learned it enough where I can sort of do it, you know? Because a Brahmin is always ready to learn more. And the biggest, most important thing is to learn more about ourselves. This whole thing we talked about tonight, where are my shortcomings? I got 3 books in my bedroom that are all about blind spots. One of them's called Blind Spots. The other one's called Mistakes Were Made, and then there's the subtitle, but not by me. We're all in denial of our own junk all the time, right? And we see it in other people, and we see how it gets them in so much trouble. Or like we've talked about recently around here, there's not a problem, but a person's mind creates a problem. And then all of a sudden their whole world is thrown into turmoil, and there wasn't even a problem to begin with, but that person created one in their mind. Okay, we're really at 8:30. Let's do the Prasadam prayer, and then we'll get on with the show here. Anyhow, thank you all for coming. It was a great group tonight. I'm glad we had a nice group, because obviously I spent a lot of time putting that chart together, and I'm always looking for the right time and the right program to integrate some of the stuff that I've done, and I thought this was a great opportunity to do this for this program. Okay, so if you've heard this before, follow along with me, and then we'll get on to the Prasadam. Okay, here we go. All together. Saridara Vijjajal Jitendriya Teka Jive Fale Vishaya Sagare Dharmaji Gayati Lovamoya Sadurmati Take Jeta Katina Samsare Krishna Bharadayamai Karibara Jivajai Swapashadana Dilabai Samrita Pal Radha Krishna Gunagal Premidako Chaitanya Nitai Jai Nimai Nitai. Who would like to have the honors of reading English tonight?
I would love to. Oh Lord, this material body.
Loud.
Oh Lord, this material body is a lump of ignorance, and the senses are a network of paths to death. Somehow we have fallen into this ocean of material sense enjoyment. In all of the senses, the tongue is most voracious and uncontrollable. It is very difficult to conquer the tongue in this world, but you, dear Krishna, are very kind to us and have given us such nice prasadam just to control the tongue. Now we take this prasadam to our full satisfaction and glorify their leadership, Sri Radha Krishna, and in love call for the help of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. Bhakti Vinod Thakur.
Very good. Thank you very much, Lori. Okay, so I assume we're kind of ready to rock and roll in the kitchen?
Yep.
Okay, so go ahead and go get yourself prasadam. Come back out here. We're going to continue with the process of during dinner time to give everybody an opportunity, if you want to spend a couple minutes while you're getting prasadam, thinking about something that occurred and then sharing it with the group since the last time we got together 2 weeks ago. Something occurred in your life